Afghanistan.
The country the world has forgotten, but darkness has never left. Every street holds a secret, every silence a scream. In these lands, every stone hides a story, every silence conceals a crime. Today, we will follow the trail of those screams. 1. The hostage crisis on the Kunduz Takhar Highway, 2016. On the morning of May 31, 2016, the Kunduz Takhar Highway in northern Afghanistan turned into a silent nightmare. Taliban militants set up fake checkpoints mimicking the army and stopped hundreds of civilians. Under the pretext of identity checks, they pulled vehicles over, then completely blocked the road. Within hours, approximately 220 to 260 people were taken hostage. Among them were teachers, merchants, students, and ordinary travelers. Some were on their way to work that day, others were trying to reunite with their families, when suddenly they found themselves prisoners in the shadow of guns. Eyewitnesses say the militants divided the hostages into spies and state collaborators. At least 12 people were executed, some shot by the roadside, others disappeared. After the incident, the government announced it had launched a rescue operation, but details were never disclosed. Local residents claimed that security forces arrived late at the scene and that some soldiers even secretly withdrew. This crisis is not just a hostage incident. It is etched in memory as a dark example of how the invisible bargaining between the state and insurgent groups costs innocent civilians their lives. 2 lost childhoods. Afghanistan's invisible child slaves. Small hands working in the dusty streets of Afghanistan, among piles of rubble or in ruined brick kilns. These children have shouldered the burden of life before they even reach the age of 10. When poverty, war, and helplessness converge, childhood becomes a luxury. According to official data, more than half of the children in the country are forced to work in some capacity. Some work in mines or heavy quarries, others work on the streets as shoe shiners or scrap collectors. Girls are often forced into domestic work or hidden workshops. A horrific tradition known as bachabatsi during the Taliban era still continues in many areas. Boys are kidnapped under the pretext of entertainment, tortured, and abused. This is not only an economic but also a deep social wound. Children who should be in school are used like slaves, shovels in hand. Although international organizations report this crime, the perpetrators are almost never punished because the country's judicial system is collapsed. In Afghanistan, a child grows up in a world where even dreaming is forbidden. 3 silent screams. The interface of women trafficking and forced marriage networks. Being a woman in Afghanistan often means trying to survive in an invisible war. In many parts of the country, women are still bought and sold like commodities, sometimes to pay off debts, sometimes to resolve disputes between families. Forced marriage, abuse, and human trafficking are now a reality not only in remote villages but also in cities. The Taliban regime's restrictions on women have only intensified this cycle. Women were excluded from education, dismissed from their jobs, then turned into an economic burden, and marketed under the guise of marriage. Some are lured abroad with promises of work, only to be sold in cross-border networks. For traffickers, this is even more profitable than the drug trade. For women, it means the complete erasure of their identity. Thousands of women disappear every year, unregistered and unfound. Most of those abducted are sent to secret brothels in Pakistan and Iran, to areas where they are forced to work. Women's voices are silenced in Afghanistan. Those who speak out are silenced. Those who resist are punished. 4. The Tora Bora file. Is the legend of bin Laden's hiding cave true? Tora Bora is a region lost within the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, shrouded in legend. In the final days of 2001, the world's media turned its attention to these mountains. Everyone believed Osama bin Laden was hiding there. US planes bombed the area for days. Caves were destroyed, and tons of ammunition were spent. However, neither bin Laden nor the massive underground base that had been described was found. Tora Bora was actually a limited-capacity refuge built by Afghan resistance fighters, using a few tunnel systems left over from the Soviet era. American intelligence reports promoted this area as a terrorist stronghold for years, but in reality, the main purpose of the bombing was to completely destroy the militant networks in the region. Some experts say that bin Laden had already crossed into Pakistan by that time, and that the Tora Bora story was deliberately exaggerated to divert attention. In the dust and smoke of war, reality and propaganda became intertwined. 5. The truth about fake IDs. The value of Afghan passports on the black market. In Afghanistan, identity is no longer a document, but a means of survival. Every year, thousands of people in the country attempt to cross borders with fake passports because real identity has lost all value. Following the Taliban regime, state institutions collapsed, and passport offices became hubs for bribery networks. Obtaining a passport can take months, but if you pay the right people, it can be ready overnight. This situation has ushered in a golden age for fake documents on the black market. Smugglers have established a complex network consisting of former government employees, printing press workers, and individuals connected to border police. Real passports are stolen, their information altered, and they are reprinted with fake stamps. Those seeking to flee to Europe or Gulf countries, in particular, are willing to pay between $5,000 and $10,000 for these documents. Some counterfeit documents are so professional that they can even pass official checks. This trade is not just identity fraud, it is a reflection of despair, fear, and helplessness. 6. The Opium Empire, Afghanistan, the heart of the global drug war. Afghanistan is the country at the center of the world's drug map. Known for centuries as the homeland of opium poppies, these lands have become the backbone of the global opium trade over the past 20 years. Every war, every change of power, has made this dark empire grow even larger. In 2022, the Taliban announced a ban on poppy cultivation, but the reality on the ground was quite the opposite. Cultivation rates increased by over 40%. This is because narcotics are the country's most profitable export. There is no other source of income for the villagers. The war economy revolves entirely around this product. The poppy fields in the southern provinces are protected. No one can approach them because they are backed by both militias and high-ranking figures. The raw material obtained from opium is transported to European markets via Pakistan and Iran. In recent years, methamphetamine production has also been on the rise. While only about 100 kilograms were seized in 2019, this figure rose to 2,700 kilograms in 2021. These laboratories are usually set up in abandoned villages, in secret rooms. Drugs mean not only money, but also power, control, and weapons. 7. Operation Golden Flower, the hidden power of Afghan saffron and global competition. When Afghanistan is mentioned, war, poverty, and drugs usually come to mind. But there is another gold mine in this country's soil, saffron. This plant, each gram of which is more valuable than gold, is considered one of the country's cleanest sources of income. Especially in the Herat and Badghis regions, saffron fields cultivated by women's labor are full of hope. However, the story of this golden flower is not as bright as it seems. As the global saffron trade has become a multi-billion-dollar market, Afghan saffron has also become a target for smuggling networks. Tons of saffron smuggled across the border to Iran are repackaged there with Made in Iran labels and sold on the world market. Farmers do not receive the full value of their labor, and the country's economy suffers. In some regions, the Taliban regime controls the saffron trade to generate revenue for its own coffers, establishing an agricultural tax system similar to, but distinct from, the one used for narcotics. Although official figures state that saffron brings Afghanistan around $40 million a year, most of the real profits change hands through unregistered channels. 8. In the shadow of black money, how is the Afghan economy laundered? In Afghanistan, dirty money is not just money. It is the invisible fuel of war, power, and power relations. Drug harvests, illegal mining, human trafficking, and cross-border smuggling first deliver the cash to local intermediary networks, which include both regional brokers and informal financiers. This money is often funneled into the visible economy through inflated invoices, high turnover declarations, or goods trading by unregistered businesses. Small volume, high-value goods such as precious stones, saffron, or gold serve as a physical intermediary layer. Informal transfer systems like Hawala allow cross-border value transfers without leaving a trace, while fake companies and complex commercial documents create shields that mask the source. Another key function of these networks is to combine economic power with political influence. The revenues generated finance armed groups, by the loyalty of local officials, and combined with the weakness of official institutions, render oversight meaningless. As a result, the line between the official economy and the shadow economy in the country becomes blurred. While the welfare of the people declines, illicit revenues increase and the cycle of conflict is fueled. 9. The plunder of history, stolen archaeological treasures. Afghanistan is a land that has been home to some of humanity's oldest civilizations. But today, that heritage lies in tatters at the hands of treasure hunters, smugglers, and war profiteers. Across the country, The ruins of ancient cities buried beneath sand dunes are now viewed as profit zones. Especially during periods of war, protected excavation sites were looted and museums ransacked. Thousands of artifacts displayed at the Kabul National Museum disappeared in the 1990s. Gold statues, stone reliefs, and coins from the Greco-Bactrian period now circulate in private collections in London and Dubai. Smugglers, in collaboration with local people, dig up the soil, and the artifacts found are transported by truck to the Pakistani border. From there, they are smuggled into the European art market with forged documents. Some of these artifacts have academic value, but history is being destroyed for the sake of trade. Every figurine sold represents a page torn from the memory of a civilization. In this sense, Afghanistan is subjected not only to cultural but also to identity genocide. A country whose history has been plundered cannot remember its future. 10 Green Massacre, Afghanistan's destroyed forests and tree smugglers. Afghanistan's mountainous regions were once covered in lush forests. In provinces like Kunar, Nuristan, and Paktia, pine and cedar trees reached for the sky. Today, those mountains are almost bare. Years of war, fuel shortages, and illegal logging have destroyed this natural heritage. Tree smuggling has become the country's new black economy. Especially along the eastern border, thousands of tons of timber are smuggled each year through secret passages leading to Pakistan. Deforestation affects not only the environment but also the lives of local people. Water sources are dwindling, soil erosion is increasing, and villages are sliding away. Even the controls carried out under the Taliban under the pretext of protecting nature have actually turned into a means of collecting taxes. A share is taken from every tree cut down, and there is a tacit agreement between smugglers and government officials. This green plunder makes Afghanistan even more vulnerable in the midst of the climate crisis. Forests that once provided shade have now turned into silent graveyards. Children no longer wake up to the sound of birds, but to the roar of chainsaws. Afghanistan's forests were not just nature, they were the breath of a people. That breath is now slowly being cut off. The country is selling its own lungs. 11. Blue stolen from heaven, the bloody smuggling route of Lapis Lazuli. That bright blue stone, extracted from beneath the ground in Afghanistan's northern mountains, in the Badakhshan region, has dazzled the world for thousands of years. Lapis Lazuli has featured in the jewels of ancient Egyptian pharaohs, Renaissance paintings, and even modern artworks. But the story behind that mesmerizing blue is a tragedy written in blood and corruption. Today, the trade in this precious stone is one of Afghanistan's most profitable yet darkest industries. The mines are controlled not by the state, but by local militias, warlords, and Taliban commanders. After the stones are extracted, they are secretly transported by truck to the Pakistani border, and from there to China and the United Arab Emirates. Millions of dollars change hands on these smuggling routes, with not a single penny going into the state coffers. A 2016 United Nations report revealed that Lapis revenues provide the Taliban with up to $20 million in funding annually. In other words, this stone is not just a decorative item, but also the fuel of war. 12. OMAR Mine Museum and Silent Witnesses of War. In one of Kabul's suburbs, one of the world's most unusual museums is located, the OMAR Mine Museum. This museum does not display art or history, but the remnants of war. Behind glass cases are hundreds of mines, grenades, rocket heads, and destroyed weapon parts. Each one is a piece of Afghanistan's more than 40 years of conflict. OMAR, which stands for Organization for Mine Clearance and Afghan Rehabilitation, is an institution founded by volunteers who spent years clearing minefields across the country. However, this museum is not just an exhibition space, it is a warning. Each piece of metal points to a child's severed leg, a villager's lost life. In 2019, the museum was targeted by a bomb attack, destroying many pieces, but the stories remain. It is estimated that there are over 10 million mines in Afghanistan, meaning every step is potentially deadly. Children still mistake the shiny metal pieces they find in the fields for toys. The OMAR Museum is a silent witness to this pain. Even though the war is said to be over, its traces continue to live on in the soil, on the streets, and in people's bodies.